position so I can see myself. There we go. Not damn. I'm gonna move the camera so you can see my lovely face. There we go. Very good. And I have to move the microphone closer so it doesn't flip out. There we go. Hello, hi. Welcome to 2019's first stream. Yeah, wow. Had a little break there, didn't I? I think mid-December or something is when I stopped. I'm gonna change my microphone settings. Give me a second. But hope you've been well. Hello TTLACC, hello Outrider SG. It's good to see you both. Welcome to today's stream, nerds. Now I wonder who XD Tenders might be. I wonder which flavor of nephew has made a new Twitch account just for me. I'm doing good, XD Tenders. I don't know which nephew you might be. I'm assuming you're a nephew because you know my name. So while you quietly roast me in the background, let me just change my microphone settings because I'm a bit too quiet. I have a feeling it might be the gate. Probably is. How about that? Let's see if I put it there. I'm still a bit quiet. Yep, this is one. This... that thing. No? Still not going? Oh, there we go. Nice. Ugh. Brutal. Sometimes when I unplug my microphone for a while, Windows just resets its input volume down to like 50 or sometimes 70, and then I wonder why it's so quiet. So now you can hear my booming voice. Good. And I'm sure chat's been lovely to me while I've been fiddling with my microphone. I've been doxxed. My secret identity is out. Nephew's friend? I don't believe you. Okay, it's your nephew crashed your stream with his sexy dance moves. Oh yeah, I remember that. Terrifying. Not in any way sexy. Oh, ouch. You're my friend, Outrider SG. And I assume TTLACC can also help me out here. Good, okay, well I think we've had enough camera reorganizing, microphone reorganizing. I'm a very professional Twitch streamer. I think I should just quit study and do this full time. Anyway, why don't we get started? This is Outrider SG's story. I actually don't know much about this one. I think it's not a continuation of one that we've been working on before. It's something that Outriders sent me last December, just under a month ago. So, Outrider, why don't you give us a little spiel about what this story is? Maybe like a brief synopsis or an introduction, because I don't know. And unless this isn't the Monster Hunter story, I think we did that last time. So yeah, why don't you give us a little introduction, and then I can read through, and then we'll start the edit. Also, I hope your respective Christmases have been good. If you've got any exciting stories, let me know. Just type it in the comments here. And also New Year's as well. What else has happened since then? Christmas, New Year's. Just there in his mind. I don't think Ninja needs any signal boost. I think he's well and truly popular enough. So it's a complete rewrite of the most recent chapter you did. Okay, cool. This is still in my main novel, but rewritten from the first person instead of third. Oh, cool. Kicks off 17 years after the shit hits the fan, rather than beginning during that period, then jump cutting to the new present. Okay, cool. That's right. I think I remember having a discussion last year. I think it may have been over Discord about what a first person narrative can bring to the table instead of a third person narrative. Just in terms of what you can do with characters and perspectives too. So this will be really interesting. Because I think that what first person and third person can do for your story is not something that you can predict until you actually write it. Because there are lots of differences and lots of ways that you can change how the story flows and feels. And I'm trying to think of specific examples, but I'm coming up blank right now. Probably the best thing to do is to just start editing. What would Grandma Rosie say? I think she'd be okay with it. I think she'd be fine with this. Also, it's this word here, so I don't think we're going to lose any sleep. It's still multi-POV, each chapter is dedicated to a single character's perspective, but now it's done in first person to address the issue I had with the camera not feeling close to the character and their thoughts. Good, good. Okay, nice. Work out for 8. Nice. Okay, well let's start. Let us start. Turn down my microphone a little bit. There we go. Wood smoke, overcooked meat, ozone, the flavor of death. It was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. Though it would be hidden in the open, disguised in plain sight. That's how the Remnant always did things, how we managed to limp on for this long. Still, finding the way in was easy enough for me. Falcons knew all the tricks. Here, for example, the entrance had been tucked away in some narrow back street between two buildings, made to look like just one more section of toppled wall. Down the alley, I found that the gate had been barred shut, so I climbed over, removed the crossbeam from the braces, and walked my bike through. Inside, small fires kicked about the compound, dancing the air into a shimmer. That's really nice. Dancing the air into a shimmer. This was a warmth that sent the winter down my spine. They had been through as usual. But when were they not? Always my damn luck. The proof of that was all around me. Fresh blackened pits ran scattershot across the yard and street. Smoothed to glass by a quick initiation, a fast lesson in the effects of plasma fired at extreme speed. Everywhere I looked, blood and chunks of people spattered the ground. It brought to mind the vats of brown stew I'd eaten 4 nights a week since as far back as I could remember. The parts of them that remained, arms, legs, a headless torso or two, were slumped over railings or sprawled out behind ineffective cover. Little tufts of smoke still billowed from their cracked flesh. It was all I could do to disregard the smell. I was wondering when the smell would come in. As it had been 2 days since my last bowl of brown, and the corpses may as well have been roasted cat for all my stomach cared. Interesting. I'm sorry, not interesting from the point of view of it being like a nice smelling corpse. Interesting. I was thinking about how this would look like in a third person perspective, and how Sean's written it in the first person makes it sort of feel a bit different. Let's keep reading. Cat. But hunger wasn't what had brought me here. No, I had a promise to keep, a mission that I had abandoned my post to complete. And I'd be damned if I was going to break it. Trouble was, I needed to head west to do it. My bike had seen better days. I made it this far by tweaking the throttle, managed to keep the engine from dying altogether at least. but I knew that I wasn't going to make it much further without a fix. Early that morning, I'd stopped to confirm a hunch. Turned out the spark plug was a piece of shit. A piece of shit that it was had all but burnt out. 1, 2, 3, 4. A good scrub with the steel pad had broken. Steel pad had stolen enough juice to carry me to the edge of town. Most Falcons had access to a dirt bike or a motorbike. We were couriers as much as scouts, often sent to deliver intel to neighbouring cells. So if his camp's burp was worth a lick, I'd find supplies in the nest. Walking my bike through the alley, I hooked a right at the end, past some run-down restaurant that had taken the brunt of the assault, I guessed. Sheets of soot-stained glass had melted in place, revealing a ruin within. The place was little more than carbon. I only hoped that these people didn't go down without a fight. As I made my way around the back, I discovered a small canopy. It was nothing but a few sheets of corrugated metal, really, propped up flimsily with 2x4s. Someone had draped an old tarp over it, then sprinkled it with leaves and grass to match the surrounding dirt. I parked my bike there, good a place as any, but before doubling back, I bent over the seat, unzipped the case that was strapped just beneath, and retrieved my compound bow. It had a rifle too. So I had a rifle too, stashed it in a similar spot on the opposite side of the bike, but nothing beat my bow. But nothing beat my bow. Thinking sunshine and brow, but nothing beat my bow. If for no greater reason than how quiet it was, gunfire attracted attention, and attention was the last thing I needed. I slung the bow over my head, let it rest across my back, then returned to the front of the restaurant. I think that's a good place to cut. 667, yeah, it's a good sort of chunk of 500 words, 600 words, which would be about 2.5 pages in. So I remember how this chapter felt from a third-person perspective, and instead of my recollection of a chapter before was weaving in the past and present, which I quite liked then. It felt as though the chapter that we had before was, I suppose, a bit more detached, and the character was scoping out her target from a hill, and then she makes her way into the building, goes down to the basement, and then encounters the Outriders who come in from the outside. This is a much more immediate side by side is what I'm going to say to describe this. As a reader, you're right beside Liana as she works through and pushes into this compound. So the narrative has changed a bit in terms of the story, but also you get a lot more immediate detail, and that's, I think, the biggest advantage of first-person perspective here. Right, to ground the present first before delving into the past a bit. Okay, nice, good. I was gonna be a bit sad if we lost this entirely, because I still think you can do this in a first-person sense, to have Liana experience something in the present and then dial back to the past and push it through again into the present. You get a bit of a hint of it here with the bowls of brown, which is really nice actually. Keeping that backwards forwards thing going. It may not be as strong as last time, but we can find ways to sort of juice it up a bit, I think. That'd be a good idea, actually. Could you link me to that? I think no, actually I think I have it, don't worry. Braille Epic. Chapter 3, Liana. She wasn't thinking straight. Thirst had bad effects, she knew. Then again, she knew better. This one here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. I can't seem to divorce myself from one or two sentences. Dips into the past, at least my writing. I think it's a nice style though. Like if you feel like you keep doing it naturally, then I suppose it's part of how you want stories to come out and how you want details from the past to flush through into the present. I think that's a totally legitimate thing to do. If you're worried about them, like overuse, or if they're not as effective as they could be, then we can work on that. But I wouldn't be too concerned if it was something that, excuse me, came out naturally. She wasn't thinking straight. First had that effect, she knew. Then again, she knew better than to be out there in the first place. But a promise was a promise, and Liana never went back on her word, almost never. Still, 2 days, and not a drop of water, trap or no, she couldn't risk a third. So this was the previous story told from the third person, and today we've got the first person over here. So third and first. I'll keep this one open actually, and we can kind of refer back to it a bit if we want. But let's compare first paragraphs. Wood smoke, overcooked meat, ozone, the flavor of death. It was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. Now, this is a much more immediate opening combination, like a hook. Suggesting. You could separate that out with a like a hook line. It's not terribly grammatically important, but the starts of stories often have to have this really immediate kind of, ooh, here we go. And this is a nice way to do it, even though it makes no real sense to separate them. Still, you can if you want to. Not a huge suggestion there. The difference though between she wasn't thinking straight. First had bad effects, she knew, then again she knew better than to be out here in the first place. This feels a bit disembodied, doesn't it? We don't really know where we are. But what this has is a nice kind of motive drive to it. Even though we don't have a painted picture of where we are, we kind of know what the character's doing there. We don't know where there is, but we know what she's doing and why. This has wood, smoke, overcooked meat, ozone, the flavor of death. It was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. We've got a place, and like a hint of a motive, but maybe in place of motive we have the danger aspect, the flavor of death. So this is a really nice opening line because it kind of primes you to expect what comes next. Even if we don't have specific images, characters, places, people, we have a vibe to it. So I think it's quite good. Note that this can also be first or third person. This is a clever little thing here because you don't know at this point of a story whether or not your narrator is then going to go, it was a combination that Liana instinctively knew, something that struck a note of fear into her heart, where she was to tread, blah 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 blah. Like you can spin it out like that, but from this point here, you don't know whether or not it's going to go that way. It was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. Now, something I can't do in first person is, it was a combination that I knew. I'm quoting back here. It was a combination that told me, oh, well, you could. What you could do instead, I suppose, of saying it was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. You could even shorten this and put something like, I knew the outpost was nearby. What am I thinking here? It was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. I think this is fine. Like I don't want to mess too much with it. If you wanted to, however, make it a bit more first person-y, you could try for something like this. I'll think of it as I go. It was a combination of me and the outpost. So, sorry, we still have to do comma and... But you don't want to make that first sentence too deep, so what we can do here is... Okay, why I'm suggesting this isn't to rewrite over Sean's writing, because I think what he had here was actually quite good. Everything here is a really soft suggestion, but I think why I'm doing the typing thing and talking over it is more of a demonstration as to why we're reworking this chapter, because Sean's already got it here in chapter 3, but Sean wanted to rewrite this whole chapter 3 here as the first part of a story, but also to shift it from third person into first person, which I think for a story would work really well. Now, there's the question then of when you change the narrative lens, it's like having a really nice camera and being able to take off the actual lens of it and put a new one on. You get different ways of taking photographs, different ways in which you have to imagine how to compose a scene, but that's a good thing because different lenses have different strengths and weaknesses. And so one of the really good strengths about a first-person narrative is that you get inside the feelings of a character and have them not so much declare their feelings, but have a very easy and open platter of emotion that you can access with that character. Third person, you can do that too, but in a slightly different way. This is maybe how I imagine a first person emotional smorgasbord to operate. Like, you have an access to all of these emotions, and this is kind of how you weave it into the narrative. Wood smoke, overcooked meat, ozone. That acrid mixture burned in the back of my throat. I knew it all too well, the flavor of death. How many bodies would I find today? Now, I've removed camp and outpost. You can easily reinsert it. You don't even have to make this rhetorical. You could probably say something like you can do that if you wanted to keep the rhetorical. And the repetition of death with a full stop between them, I don't know how I feel about that. So, in essence, I haven't really added anything. I've taken what was here and kind of blown it out a bit. You could argue that that's kind of bulky, and I probably agree. And I don't want Sean to keep this. I'd actually like Sean to go back and kind of just X all of these. But why I'm doing this is to sort of prime us to start thinking about how we can incorporate a bit more emotive detail into the first person narrative as we go through. And to Sean's credit, I think he's done a really good job so far of not only grounding us in the scene, but giving us little clues as to how Liana feels about these things. Yeah, cool. She's a little more plain in that regard. Nice. Yeah. You can even put that mixture burned. Nice. Well, let's push on. I think I've laboured the point enough. What I'm going to be looking out for mainly in this section here is that yeah, exactly. It's more casual about the prospect of people dying. Yeah, that was something that I wanted to incorporate here with like a bit of a rhetorical. How many bodies would I find today? That's in my head. That was a nice way to sort of casualize everything. You might want to think of a different way to do that, like a bit of snark or sarcasm, like "oh, good, more bodies." But you want to be careful with snark and sarcasm because I think it's really it's very much overused. That sort of cocky, blasé attitude to death in a post-apocalyptic setting. Like, it's a bit of a trope, and I think we can do better as writers from this point on. So we can find other ways to do it. Right, especially because if it's a flaw that you want to have her work through, having humor as a mask is a good thing. But from the start of a story, maybe you can put a seed in the reader's mind that she's numb to this, but she wants to make herself not numb, so to speak. Okay, last thing I'm gonna blab on about before I start actually going through this is we want the biggest thing in my mind with this opening chapter here is that the 600 words I've read, we don't want Liana to be like the tutorial master to the intro of the story, and I think you've done a pretty good job of avoiding that feeling. Like, this is the wasteland, this is the outpost, this is my bike, this is etc etc. Like, those sorts of details should just come up naturally, and I think they have. But it's just something to keep in mind that we don't accidentally stumble into like the temptation that we have at the start of a story just to dump a whole lot of information on the reader in a way that doesn't feel like it's progressing the story. Though it would be hidden in the open, disguised in plain sight, full stop. We could probably do with a linker here. So even if we kept this before, wood smoke, overcooked meat, ozone, there was a combination that told me the outpost was nearby. Here, for example, the entrance would be tucked away in some narrow building down the alley. No, actually, that's too basic. Why don't we keep that there? Whoops. We undelete this. I think for now what I'll do is sort of revert to what we had before so that I can edit this. Though it will be hidden in the open, disguised in plain sight. I'm going to renege on that suggestion because it's a run-on sentence, though it would be hidden in the open, disguised in plain sight. That's how the Remnant always did things. How I'd managed to limp on for this long. Still, finding the way in was easy enough for me. Falcons knew all the tricks. Here, for example, the entrance had been tucked away in some narrow back street between two buildings, made to look like just one more section of toppled wall. Down the alley, I found that the gate had been barred shut, so I climbed over, removed the crossbeam from the braces, and walked my bike through. Inside, small fires kicked about the compound, dancing in the air into a shimmer. This is my favourite thing so far. This was a warmth that sent the winter down my spine. They had been through as usual, but when were they? But when were they not? Who is this? Hello, Cuddly Clem. It's me. Back in my first stream in 2019. Hello, welcome back. Good to see you. How have you been? This is correct. This is my name. Just so I wanted to keep the world building, so I tried to keep it in mind while I wrote this. I think you're doing a better job in this one, in that I can't, like, I still got the impression sometimes, but it wasn't as heavy as when you were in the fantasy one. But to your credit, with the fantasy one, it was a much shorter story, so it felt more permissible in that context. Whereas if this is the start of a novel, we need to be a bit more sort of easy, I think. Davy Eid. Yep, I was doxed heavily. This is Nicodemus and Lyrebird. I could change it to Lyrebird. I wonder how I go about doing that, and whether or not the Office of Births, Deaths and Marriages would accept my name change. Dave Bird. Beautiful. One thing I've noticed about this little section here is there's a present, and then this sort of, like, it's all in the mixed to burn present tense, so it would be hidden. That's how the members did things. Here, for example, the entrance had been tucked away in some narrow backstreet between buildings, made to look like a section on top of the wall. Down the alley, I found that the gate had been shut. I found that the gate had been shut is a is the kind of sentence that you'd have to indicate that what she's about to talk about is a past tense event. So you have to kind of keep it consistent. So I climbed over, removed the crossbeam from the braces, and walked my bike through. Now, this had here carries through with here, here, and here. If you don't have the had here, I found that gate. Yeah, this is what starts it all. Have this had here. So that repetition of had doesn't need to go through all the way, but it needs to be in the reader's mind that Leanna is talking about. I'm here right now, but what I'd done to get here was this, and I had done this, and I had done that. It's just a really tiny thing, but it will help your reader distinguish, okay, Leanna's here, but now she's talking about what she had to do to get here. Inside, small fires. So then, the reason why it's important is that because we come to here, inside, small fires kicked about the compound, dancing the air into a shimmer. Is this happening right now, or did this happen at the very first instance of her walking in? That's the question I have in my mind. Why is it important? Because to me, I don't know whether Leanna is describing something happening in the immediate right now, or if she's like 6 kilometers out of town, or like 10 miles out of town, I don't know, 10 yogurt lids out of town, and she's retelling this event from a past perspective. She's obviously not, because we've got a present tense up here. But yeah, it's a small thing. The proof of that was all around me. and burned is a funny word too because it can be present tense. Like Susie walks in and dumps a whole bunch of tea on me. It burned. It burns. No, burn is past tense, but it feels like it's present. I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? The proof of that was all around. I don't know. Like English tenses are strange. Sometimes I can't really get my head around what feels like it's in the present, but is told like it's in the past. So you kind of have to feel your way through it sometimes. The proof of that was all around me. Fresh blackened pits ran scattershot across the yard and street, smoothed to glass by quick initiation, a fast lesson in the effects of plasma fired at extreme speeds everywhere. It looked like blood and choke. So this is now a present tense thing. I feel like Leanna is here in the moment. I think about shot. I found that the gate had been barred shut. I found the gate barred shut. So I climbed over, removed the crossbeam from the braces, and walked my bike through. Right, and this makes the past tense more consistent to get rid of the I had done this, I did this. Yeah, it feels a bit better now. I think that's a good improvement. That evens out the tense. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. So actually, should be down the alley. I found the gate, was barred shut, so I climbed over. The proof of the damn lock was all around her. Inside, small fires kicked about the compound, dancing the under of shimmer vessels, warmth. They had been thorough as usual, not through. They had been thorough as usual, but when were they not? Always my damn luck. The proof of that was all around me. I'd suggest doing this, swapping them around. They had been thorough as usual, but when were they not? The proof of that was all around me. Always my damn luck. Fresh, black, and pit. So the reason why I suggest this is because these two ideas are linked, and this is like an interjection. This way now it reads linked idea, interjection, and then you suspend both of those. If you have it in the same paragraph, you've got a mixture of ideas, and like, oh, you know, what are you talking about? What saw was my damn? Like, the proof of that was all around me. Fresh blackened pits ran scattershot across the yard and street, smooth to glass by quick initiation, a fast lesson in the effects of plasma fired at extreme speed. This is quite thick. I like what you're going for, but I think you can separate it out into two sentences, and it will be much smoother then. Fresh blackened pits ran scattershot across the yard and street, smooth to glass by a quick initiation. A fast lesson in the effect of plasma fired at extreme speed is a very verbose, and I really like that image. But I wonder, is it appropriate for Leanna? I haven't got a sense of a character yet. You said that before you wanted her to be more, she's a little more plain in that regard. The trouble with first person in this context is that you have to be careful about how she tells you the story. In third person, you can make a nice clean division between your narrator's voice and your character's voice and your character's understanding of the world. But if Leanna's talking, you have to reconcile this with she's a bit more plain in that regard, which is what you told me up here. She's a little more plain in that regard. Fresh blackened pits ran scattershot across the yard and streets, moved to glass by quick initiation. Like, even this suffers from the same character problem. Like, is this something that Leanna would actually say or vocalize or even think? So, and like, while I really like that, a more characterful Leanna style way of talking, maybe like do 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 do. There you go. Yeah, isn't it funny? Like sometimes just swapping stuff around. You probably didn't clue into why it was tripping you up. Sometimes all it does, all it takes is another person to go, oh yeah, it's because of this. Like it kind of comes in the middle, separates the ideas. Yeah, isn't it funny? The old switcheroo. How easy you made that look. I think it's just from the perspective of me reading it for the first time and thinking, like, fresh impression. That's what I got from it. Isn't so mad. But yeah, my pleasure. Is that Psyker I see? Hello, hi. I haven't seen you in ages. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hope you're well. Yeah, I haven't seen you on Discord for a while either. Do feel free to say hello and tell us how you're going. I'm actually not here. Hmm. Yeah. No, and I agree outright. I like how you originally worded it. I think it's a bit stronger now, and we didn't really change anything. We just moved it around. How am I doing? I'm doing good. I had a good Christmas, good New Year. Um, Nothing much to report. I haven't done any writing. I've been really bad. Just I like to pretend like I've been percolating a great idea, but I really haven't. I've just been. Oh no, well, not a great idea. But I don't want to use that as an excuse for not writing. But sometimes it is nice just to think about stories rather than chasing them. I don't know. But tell me, how was your Christmas? How was your New Year? Did I get any Minion gifts? No, it was a terrible Christmas. No, I didn't get any Minion themed presents or paraphernalia. Good. Poor Scoot. But I'm sure he appreciates your love. Every day Chris more sick of Shrek. There's only so much Shrek one man can handle. Let me just go back to this for a tick. Fresh blackened pits run scattered across the yard, and straight smooth to glass by quick initiation, a fast lessening the effects when plasma fired at extreme speed. We do need to break this up, either into two sentences, or like I don't know if you want to put in a swearing or anything. Why I'm suggesting this isn't to reconfigure this in a grammatical sense so much as to show you, like, if you're going to be writing in the first person, you have to think about how the character of Leanna influences how the story is told. Blackened pits, moved to glass by plasma fire, merciless fuckers, something like that. Now, what this does is has exactly the same image that you wanted to convey before, but then it sprinkles in a bit of Leanna, like it's like seasoning. I think something like this might work better in a characterful sense. You don't have to swear. Like, I don't know what Leanna's character is, but you can start to convey that character by how she talks to you, the reader. Like in pits, moved to glass by plasma fire. Everywhere, chunks of human. Merciless and crude. Okay, so I'm writing over this a bit, but let me read this back out. Blackened pits, smooth to glass by plasma fire. Everywhere, chunks of human. Merciless and crude. That's how they were. That's how they saw us. As insects crawling across the face of the earth. Of our earth. Everywhere I looked, I saw insect carcasses. Now, you gotta be really careful with that because you don't want to confuse your reader that, like, you're describing aliens and humans in the same place at the same time. So hopefully this conveys that, like, the aliens see humans as insects and that Liana is kind of seeing everything with, like, this weird kind of almost divorced sense of reality. I walked up to some poor soul, not so, too. Kicked his headless torso with the tip of my boot, empty and hollow, coloured with the sun and blood dried. It brought to mind the vats of brown stew I'd eaten 4 nights a week since I was this. So, like, why is this different? Why am I going in and chopping up otherwise really good writing? The only thing I suggest is that without these, can I undo? Yeah. So the proof, I'll read out what Sean had before. The proof of that was all around me, which is they had been thorough. This was the proof. Fresh, blackened pits ran scattershot across the yard and street, smooth to glass by a quick initiation, a fast lesson, and the effects of plasma fired at extreme speed. Everywhere I looked, blood and chunks of people spackled the ground. It brought to mind the vats of brown stew I'd eaten 4 nights a week since as far back as I could remember. The parts of them that remained, arms, legs, a headless torso or two, were slumped over railings and sprawled out behind ineffective cover. Now, I've kind of rewritten that as blackened pits. Oh, sorry, fresh. No. The proof that was all around me, always my damn luck. Blackened pits, smooth to glass by plasma fire. Craters of everywhere, chunks of human. Merciless and crude. That's how they were. That's how they saw us, treated us, as insects crawling across the face of our earth. Everywhere I looked, I saw insect carcasses. As if we were the pests is the implication I wanted to drop here. Everywhere I looked, I saw insect carcasses. I walked up to some poor soul, kicked his headless torso with the tip of my boot, empty and hollow, coloured by the sun and blood dried. So, it's different. I don't want Sean to keep this. I don't want Sean to be like Liar's writing is the way it should be done. What I want to get Sean to think about is, and I'm sure like Sean's really good at doing this. I'm not like beating him over the head. But I think I'm just trying to encourage him to think about how first-person narration needs to operate. And if we've got a very good relationship between the character and the camera, the way that the camera is following Liana around, and Liana is basically pulling it. It's like a selfie stick, but in a not lame way. It's Liana telling you a story and showing you the visuals. It's Liana pushing her voice onto the narrative. It's Liana taking you around to the headless torso and showing you how she interacts with it. She's not doing this at a distance where it's like, I'll tell you a story that happened to me like 15 years ago. Okay, so I'm in this place, lots of human corpses, and then this happens. It's not like that. Liana is here at this very point in time doing this as the reader is with her. So even though it's a past tense event, it's very close past tense, and it's a very nice way to tell a story because you can do lots of really interesting narrative things. You can mix in like you don't have to be a slave to keeping everything up to date in time like a first person present story does. You can be a bit tricky with time, you can stretch events out, you can imbue a whole lot of emotion into the event if it feels like it's just on the edge of being past tense, and I think that's what Sean's going for here. So why I'm coming in with all these suggestions then isn't so much that the events are wrong or the way it's written is wrong. It's just that we need Leanna's voice to echo through the story. It needs to be the baseline, I suppose. It's also a good idea too, just because we can get a sense of Leanna's character by how she interacts with things. Like, she could walk up to this carcass and if she's feeling particularly soulful or spiritual, she might kneel down and perform a prayer or something in front of this torso. Or she could just not even pay attention to it. She can just say, "Hey, bodies everywhere. Don't care. I'm over here now." How she chooses to interact with these corpses and how she tells you about the corpses is really important in a way that is kind of less apparent in a third person story. Yeah. So let's have a read here. Here we come together towards stream. Real Psycho, are you actually Scott? Are you just Scott here being like, "Hey, this is a great guy. Come and check out his stream." Also, I totally don't mind if you want to like advertise other people's streams on here. We're a lovely community, so please go and watch other people's streams too. I think that's a nice thing to do. Hmm. Hmm. I think that's exactly right, Sean. You've because you're in first person, what matters more, I suppose, than getting Leanna to distance herself from herself is getting Leanna just to be honest with the reader. And you put it really well here. Instead of, "Oh, the smell put me ill at ease," you've got to write something like, "Smell churned around in my stomach and nearly brought up my breakfast." Like, it needs to be more visceral and real and less of a description of implication, but rather a direct implication, if it makes sense. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just waffling. Lyrebird waffles. Let's move on. I think we got a decent amount through that. It brought to mind the vats of brown stew I had eaten 4 nights a week since as far back as I could remember. The parts of them that remained, arms, legs, headless torso or two, slumped over railings or sprawled out behind an ineffective cover. Little tufts of smoke still bellowed from their cracked flesh. It was all that I could do to disregard the smell, as it had been 2 days since my last bowl of brown, and the corpses may well have been roasted cat for all my stomach cared. I really like what you're going for here in terms of, like, she's fighting this horrible sense of that kind of smells good. Which is, I don't want to say it's a nice thing to have, but I think it's a really appropriate story thing to have. Yeah, right. Describing it as if she is still there in the moment rather than recounting it later, edited with hindsight. It's totally your choice what you do, but you don't need to be consistent. There's this tense called the... I think I've shown you guys this before, but this tense called the historical present, which is basically this, recounting it later, edited with hindsight. It's this. If the funeral had been yesterday, I could not recollect it better. The very air of the best parlour when I went in at the door, the bright condition of the fire, the shining of the wine in the decanters, the patterns of the glasses and plates, the faint, sweet smell of cake, the odour of Miss Murdstone's dress and our black clothes. Mr. Chilp is in the room and comes to speak to me, which is present. And how is Master David? He says kindly. Okay, but this is a bit different. Sorry, this is an actual present tense, but it's told as though it's happening in the past. But that kind of implication happens with crosses over. Actually, it's in no way the same. Edit that part out. You didn't see anything. It's totally different. This isn't a Fortnite stream. This is better than Fortnite. This is creating towers and structures with the mind. This is a 1v1 v100 battle royale of words, where only the mightiest of words win, where only the slurpiest of slope juices get kept on. Yeah, I don't know. Also, hello herringbone. I thought you weren't coming today. Hmm. I think if I get pestered by my nephews anymore, TTLACC, I might even have to start streaming Fortnite. Wouldn't it be a weird stream, like, if I could play Fortnite and then edit some stuff in the background between the matches? Nah, I don't think I should do it. That's right. I baited you in with the sweet promise of Fortnite, which I very brazenly advertise, and then I get you in, and it's like, ha, it's not Fortnite, it's editing words. Yeah. That's okay, Herring. Stay for as long as you can. How much does it cost to put Liar in new skins? Well, guys, if you supported me on my Patreon, I could buy myself some V-Bucks, and I can get those sweet skins. I need them skins. I need the different types of parasails that you have as you jump out of the bus. And the dance moves. The dance moves, guys. My goodness. The microtransactions. Yeah, what's the deal with Patreon? What's going on there, Outrider? What has this stream become? It used to be a bastion of purity. It used to be pure editing, and now it's just Fortnite. I mean, look at this Fortnite. Look at what's going on here. Phosphorus. Absolutely not. This is an interesting thing that's going on. I think I've kind of heard about what Patreon's doing with its members who are, I suppose, more right of the spectrum. But I haven't got details of specific cases. Are you thinking, what's his face? Not Milo. The other one. The British UKIP guy. Right. I think it was that guy that I'm thinking of. That's a tough one. I mean, I could talk about that for a while, but I think we get pretty distracted. That might be a decent conversation for Discord, actually. It's that weird balance between a company can do what it likes with its platform versus should controversial opinions be censored and punished financially via a platform. Messy. And I haven't got like specific details here, so I can't really comment in a way that's sensible. Like, we can make general overarching statements about theory, but when it comes down to people's specific circumstances, I just don't know. Maybe we can say that for Discord, otherwise this will become like a political commentary stream. Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. We can move it over to Discord, I think. Right. So we haven't actually got through much yet. Gosh, sorry guys, we're a bit slow today, but I think the purpose of this edit I think for the most part, like the line by line stuff's really good, so I haven't had to reconfigure too much of what's gone on so far. But I'm just conscious of like how the first person narration is influencing the story. Let's keep it in our minds as we go on. this part here is what I wanted to talk about. The parts of them that remain, arms, legs, a headless torso too, was slumped over railings and sprawled out behind ineffective cover. Little tufts of smoke still below from that cracked flesh. It was all that I could do to disregard the smell, as it had been 2 days since my last bowl of brown, and the corpses may have well been roasted cat for all my stomach cared. This is a really great story detail. I really love it. Have a think about Leanna's voice here, and how you can make the delivery of this more worldful and characterful. By that, I mean, put yourself in her shoes and think about how she might describe it in a way that conveys hidden meaning and implication to the reader. So the example that I have is something like little tufts of smoke still billow from that cracked flesh, which is fine. It's a good sort of block description there. We've got an image in our heads, so let's keep that. It was all I could do to disregard the smell. It has been 2 days since my last bowl of brown and the corpses. So this is the key here. My stomach. Little tufts of smoke still billowed from that cracked flesh. My stomach grumbled. That horrible wash of guilt came next. So I tried not to think about how damn good that corpse looked to me, how my 2-day starved brain mistook it for cat food. I'd like to say it was a fleeting feeling. That would be a lie. Not cat food, sorry. This also implies that she knows what people taste like, which is a bit of a horrible detail. But what that thing that I've just written has that this doesn't, apart from more sentences, is a softer implication. So you've jam-packed a really great story detail in with this 3-part sentence here. It was all that I could do to disregard the smell. 2 days since my last bowl of brown. The corpses look good to me. So you can weave that detail in a slower way. Just dial the pace back, because this is the kind of detail that will make your reader care about Leanna in a way that Leanna doesn't even have to try too hard. Like, nothing really horrible or storyful has happened yet, but with Leanna dipping back into her past and bringing up a very uncomfortable fact, it could be a really neat way to kind of give your readers a good connection to Leanna. Yeah, it almost implies she's a cannibal. This does imply that she's a cannibal, so you can change that too. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Even child corpses smell appetizing, so you can still have that as guilt, like, she doesn't have to know what it tastes like. Same taste, I'd imagine. But the point about this isn't so much of exact detail, but rather how it's told. Shorter sentences. Leanna having a bit more sort of time dilation over the events, and she's thinking about it. She's vocalizing her internal monologue. That comes a bit more readily with the story that's told on the fly, rather than, hey, it's me, your girl Leanna. I'm here 6 years after the events of the story, but let me tell you about what happened 6 years ago. Here's what happened. That kind of story is different to, I am here right now, I've done this to get here. Right now there are lots of burning corpses around me, I walked up to one, I did this, I did that, I did that. I changed tense then, don't worry about that. One story is very different from the other. The latter, what I was just talking about, lends itself to this a lot more. But hunger wasn't what brought me here. Wasn't what had brought me here. Can I suggest didn't drink? But hunger wasn't... Hunger didn't bring me here. It's not as flowery, but it's neater in terms of getting your reader to not trip up over it. But hunger didn't bring me here. No. I had a promise to keep, a mission that I had abandoned my post to complete, and I'd be damned if I was going to break it. Trouble was, I needed to head west to do it, and my bike had seen better days. I made it this far by tweaking the throttle and managed to keep the engine from dying altogether at least, but I knew that I wasn't going to make it much further without a fix. Earlier that morning I stopped to confirm my hunch, turned out the spark plug piece of shit that it was, all but burnt out. A good scrub with a steel pad had stolen enough juice to carry me to the edge of town. Most Falcons had access to a dirt bike or motorcycle. We were couriers as much as scouts, often sent to deliver intel to neighbouring cells, so if this camp's bird was worth a lick, I'd find supplies in their nest. I think this wanders a little too much. Let me dissect it a bit. And I'd be damned if I was going to break it. Reader mind is like, okay, great, I'm ready. What are you doing here? And the paragraph wanders around a bit, and then at the end, it comes back to, I gotta fix my motorcycle. Where I think you run into a bit of trouble was, there are two motives here. There's motive A, which is hidden, and motive B, which is I need to fix my bike to get to motive A. Sorry, here. The camera's here. Hi. Motive A is hidden. Motive B is I need to fix my bike to get to motive A. We don't know what motive A is. I'm prepared to suspend myself for now and get at it a bit later, but motive B is bike needs fixing. Trouble was, I needed to head west to do it, and my bike had seen better days. This is fine to declare that fact. I would suggest though, instead of talking about tweaking the throttle, and talking about the spark plug getting to the edge of town, this detail here it feels. I'm gonna call it a wasted opportunity, and that might seem a bit harsh. The detail itself is fine, but me as a reader wants more info about the present state of the bike. Because I think this is where, and what motive A is, where we're going on that bike. So what I suggest doing here, Biek. The trouble was, I needed to head west to do it, and my bike had seen better days. This is the first time we have... Give me a sec. I think instead of referring to the bike in the past, in like an abstract historical sense, it'd be good to actually draw her attention to the bike in the present sense. So, state. I think, in my mind, there's no advantage of having this in an abstract historical sense versus right now. Here in front of me is my bike, and it looks like this. Why am I suggesting this? Why is it so important? It's not a huge thing, but it does take your reader out of, okay, here's the motive. Hey, P.S. in the morning this happened, and I feel like we need to keep it grounded in the present. Because it comes back at itself here. Most Falcons had access to a dirt bike or a motorcycle. We were couriers as much as scouts, often sent to deliver intel to neighbouring cells. This detail here is very much a lurch into an abstract historical, this is what we are as people kind of thing. So if this camp's web was worth a lick, I'd find supplies of Venice. That's why she's here in the outpost. I reuse the word outpost just so that we know why we're here. She's searching for a motorcycle to replace the parts to then go off to motive A. I think that's what we're doing. Yep, or you can, as you say, just like, turns out spark plug was shot, needed a replacement to replace all that. Cool, cool. Nice. I'll let you reconfigure that because it sounds like you've got probably a better idea than me as to how to replace this information here. Keep in mind that my bike had seen better days is the main gist of this paragraph. So I'm going to highlight that, and when you come back and edit, just make sure that you're constantly feeding this idea. My bike had seen better days. My bike's a piece of shit. Needs to get fixed. Let's move on. Oh, your idea. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, you've got control over what you want to integrate and how you want to work with it. You have the power. Just kidding, I do. Walking my bike through the alley. Yeah, and this feeds in nicely too. You got your bike here, you talk about it, why it's so important. We were couriers as much as scouts. Could you imply this with an object? This is I think this would be really good to try and imply, like a carrier satchel. I think that would be a nicer way to impart this information, like, the less we're removed from this scene, right now in this point of the story, probably the better. Cool. Good. Glad you like that. I think that conveys the same information without going, hey, by the way, I'm a courier and this is what I do. Rather it's, I'm still here, I'm still Liana, here's my bike, it's crap, needs fixing, plus like the stitching on my saddle is gonna collapse one day, then I'll be useless as a courier. Something like that. It's same information, but it's localized in Liana's understanding. Walking my bike through the alley, I hooked a ride at the end past some rundown restaurant that had taken the brunt of the assault, I guessed. Sheets of soot-stained glass had melted in place, revealing a ruin within. The place was little more than carbon. I only hoped that these people didn't go down without a fight. I think that's okay. I'm prepared to just move on at this point. As I made my way around the back, I discovered a small canopy. It was nothing but a few sheets of corrugated metal, really. I don't think you can have a semicolon there. You have to go Go new sentence. It was nothing more than a corner really propped up flimsily with 2x4s. You can say propped up with flimsy 2x4s. You can turn this into an adjective rather than an adverbally. Not a huge change there, but it reads a bit more smooth. A bit smoother. Smoothest. Someone had dropped an old tarp over it and sprinkled it with leaves and grass to match the surrounding dirt. I parked my bike there. Good a place as any. But before doubling back, I bent over the seat, unzipped the case that was strapped just beneath, and retrieved my compound bow. Now I assume it's... I had a rifle too stashed in a similar spot on the opposite side of the bike. Nothing beat my bow, if not for greater reason than how quiet it was. Gunfire attracted attention, and attention was the last thing that I needed. I slung the bow over my head, let it rest across my back, and returned to the front of the restaurant. I don't mind this, and I think because it's info dumpy, but because it's done in the present, I'm forgiving with it. I feel like it's okay to have this. Let's have a read though. Every falcon has a dirt bike or motorcycle, apart from a satchel. It is the only tool of my trade. Apart from a... That could work too, I think, yeah. Yeah, exactly, I was thinking about putting a little qualifier there. Delivery satchel's great. Or courier satchel, or... I'll let you think about how to work that in. Because of the infrequency of this, this is kind of her editorializing. So here, we're veering into territory of Liana talking about her events in where she's in the future, and the events that we're experiencing are in the past, and she's got an editorializing kind of eye. The opening section of this story feels more like it's a present event that's just happened, and so we're in the... Sorry, here. This is present past. Although for you it might be the other way around, I don't know. But if you assume that this is the present and here's the past, and this is a timeline here. Such a full of intel is also good too. Or intel satchel. What was I saying? Ooh, that's nice. I needed quite like I needed air. It has a bit of cheese to it. Yeah, I like that. So I'll put that in as a comment. Like it might be a bit overblown, sure, but you can sort of smooth it out later. Now that is a very clever way of overcoming what we were just talking about. But nothing beat my bow, if for no greater reason than how quiet it was. Gunfire attracted attention, and attention was the last thing that I needed. That's a very editorialized, hindsighty kind of way to describe events. But nothing beat my bow, lethal, but more importantly, quiet. I needed quiet like I needed air. This is something that can be very quickly reconciled with an event that's just happened. I reached out, picked up my bow. It's exactly what I need. Let's move on. It has less of a... and little did I know, but that bow would save my life in 3 pages kind of feel to it. It has more of a, I'm picking up my bow, let's get going. I can cut it down a lot less. Sorry, I can cut it down a lot to be less on. And as an aside, I think I know what you mean, Herringbone, yeah. Just from sort of here onwards. Oh, to be less of an aside. Yeah. I think that has an... It's about the same size. One sec. Hello. Thanks for waiting. Before doubling back, I reached beneath the state of my gun to the... Yep. Actually, that's really good. Whittle. I think I agree with Herring, but maybe for a slightly different reason. That would work really nicely with the editorialized style. Whereas I think you're trying to go for a more present past sandwich, or like a back-to-back style. So in that case, I'd take out Lethal Quiet Perfect because it's too editorialized-y. Rather than I reach beneath my seat, off my gun, too loud, and drew my compound bow. Over my shoulder, across my back, I then headed into the restaurant. That probably may kind of cut the lag, I suppose. Okay. Now, I'm gonna read through a big chunk of this section here. Oh, hello. Hello, Sean. Doing a little sneaky edit here. Excuse me. Also, that's totally fine if you want to type in some stuff as well. Betrayal. How dare you edit while I'm editing? Let's read out the next section. If you know what to look for, spotting a nest would be easy. And thanks to Chloe, I did. For a second there I could see her face, like a half-reflected echo waving at me. From just behind the hot, misshapen air, she was poking her head up from one of our nests, her braided brown hair draping from one shoulder, a pair of binoculars hanging from her neck. Back home, she and I had often gotten ourselves into one shit situation after another, but being the only two girls on watch, we'd stuck together. There were a dozen nests that circled our compound, and on any given night, we would be assigned one at random. Not an inch of that place had been outside the Falcon's sight, and for good reason. The location of command was the Remnant's most important secret, our greatest asset. For me, shifts got pretty long and tedious. I wanted action, and Chloe had done her best to oblige. She made little competitions of the things we needed to practice. Sometimes that meant seeing who could remember the most hand signals, while others it meant racing each other to find the quickest, safest route between the nests. I was shit at that. Chloe had gone over it with me time and time again. I'd been too impatient, but eventually her lessons had taken root, almost. Just in case, she showed me how to move between the blind spots, get a real kick out of that. Got a real kick out of that. Okay, that makes sense. But for her part, Chloe couldn't shoot a rifle if her life depended on it, even though it absolutely had. So I taught her how to separate a squirrel from its tail at 100 yards with my bow. The trick was to exhale half a breath and release. But there weren't so many squirrels left anymore, and standing amidst the smell of burnt meat, dreaming about them, that only made my stomach gurgle, so I kicked any thoughts of Chloe to the back of my mind. I'm gonna read a little more. Off in the distance, in the far back corner of the outpost, there was a giant tree, its leaves shriveled and brown. Down the road to my right, an old grocery, but the roof had caved in. Recently too, I knew, since there was smoke still rising from the collapsed section. Not that it was a great A spot for a nest anyhow. Really, the easy place would be the highest point around. In the southern edge of camp, there was a steeple that fit the bill. It stood on the front-facing side of an old white chapel, with a window at the top that could have some great sight lines, though I was confident that a spotter would not choose to post up there too obvious. Uninspired, really. In fact, I'd be a little pissed to find the nest there, but it would be a good place to scope out the whole area. I kept to the left, wrapping around the edge of the compound. No way was I going to allow myself to be caught out in the open. Not like the poor bastards around me. The threat from above was always there, always real. Before long, I stood just outside the church, where I discovered an old iron placard. It had been mounted beside the doorway. Upon closer inspection, it read, "The Church of Jesus Christ of LDS. Visitors welcome." It's a Mormon church. Are we in Utah? Utah is the rectangular state, isn't it? Oh yeah, that's right, with the little corner in the top that's been cut out. Yeah, otherwise it looks like a perfect rectangle. Colorado! Ah, born in Utah, there you go. Rectangle with the extra rectangle. Yeah, I spotted some things here. Two greater spot was one of them. Good spotting at TLCC. Two greater spot. Two greater spot unspied recently. Oops. Yeah, nice. I think outright I can fix some of these little typos here. There's also one part here where yep, there you go. That's it. Oh, yeah, that's what TTL says here. I was thinking about that. Not that it is too. That's what I stumbled to say out loud. Good. Nice. Let's discuss this section. It's almost seven, 8, 5. It's there's some terrible maths. 5 over 7, 10 over 14. Yeah, about 70%. This past section here, which, to be fair, I also swallowed up in this here too. So let's round it down to about 55, 60%. This is a big chunk of past information with an editorialized style story, with this distance between present and past. This information tends to work a bit better when you have like a big section where your character goes, okay, just pause for a tick. I know I'm in a dangerous situation, but I'm gonna tell you what's happened in my past, like with this thing with me and Chloe, and also provide you some information about our home base. In my pure opinion, this tends to work a lot less well for a story that is back to back with its past and present. Like this is happening to me almost right now, or at least it feels like it is. These sorts of throwbacks into the past, I think, would be a lot stronger as shorter pieces if you wanted to keep that style of like an immediate past going strong. You can probably find a way to make the two work, the past and the present. This stuff here, it's really this section, and with this one too. It's basically a page, and it will look like a page in a book, but maybe a little bit more. What I'd suggest doing is actually cutting all of this. So this detail, here is good world building. But for the style of writing that I think would be most suited to this kind of story would be, but for the style of writing I think would be most suited to this kind of story, it removes you too much from the present. This has the effect of it being quite saggy. Usually in these types of stories, you have these almost throwaway lines to characters. Like, I've seen this done in published books, where it's like, Liana's walking through somewhere, and she says, walking down these streets with the burnt out remnants of humanity smouldering by my sides, I get a twinge of the familiar. If I look over there, I might see Chloe with her head poking out from the windows, that stupid cheeky smile on her face, as if there were no problems and no danger around her. What a moron. Full stop. Continue straight on. Like, that's it. That's all that you'd afford to Chloe. And as a reader, you go, okay, like, there's this character, Chloe, fine. She interfaces with Liana very briefly and then goes off. Why I think that's somewhat annoying for a reader, but quite a decent thing to do in this type of story, is because it's first person, and that's how people usually think of other people. And it removes the burden of narrative pressure. This doesn't feel like it's a Liana thing. It feels like it's a narrator pushing information through Liana as she's remembering something viscerally. Now, usually this is the visceral element, and this is the backstory that a third-person narrator would interject with. So I think you'll have to think of a way to incorporate this as little snippets elsewhere, because I think it's too much too quickly, and it removes us from the story. So, for instance, if you just get rid of it, if you know what to look for, spotting a nest would be easy. And thanks to Chloe, it was easy. For a second there, I could see her face like a half-reflected halo, like a half-reflected echo waving at me from just beyond the hot misshapen air. I'd put her inside a building or something. Make her less abstract. This will have the effect of, well, actually, what I mean by this. Something like that, just over there by the broken windows with that stupid cheeky smile on her face, is a lot more characterful, but it's also a vivid image with a place, rather than, oh, she's over there waving in this abstract way, in this abstract area. She was poking her head up from one of our nests. Her braided hair. Now, this isn't actually, this is a memory. Not a present ghostly overlay, so it primes the reader for a throwback, but I suggest actually not doing this. Good, and now I'm actually going to, sorry, take a pause and have a read of what you said. I'll take a look at sculpting it down to more of a thought that is relevant to the moment. Oh, interesting, Herringbone. Lots of back and forth. Yeah, this is hard. It's hard to work on. Initially I wanted to just make her think of Chloe for a second, and then I thought to use it as a partial origin for attachment to a bow, and for a mention of where she's from, and then just got so blurred looking back on it now. It does have that feeling, like, you had a seed of an idea. I didn't know that you wanted it to go in a specific direction, but it does feel like you used it as an opportunity to think, like, oh no, I need to give readers, like, a impression of all these things. It does read a bit like that, yeah. Right, more veiled only. Exactly, yeah, exactly. That's a technique that's really good, Herringbone. Is if you have these constant one-liner throwaways, it helps the reader organically, I hate that word, it helps the reader have this sort of natural sense of how Chloe and Leanna work together, which I think is a lot more strong than one big standalone macro story that's pushed in through the back. This is more, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as Herring said, it's a way for them to sort of chew on it as you go through. So as you're just cutting this out completely, this section here, back home, blah blah blah, keep this short. One thing you might like to consider, what I would probably do if I was writing this story with my own style, would be to actually have Chloe as like a ghost, leading Leanna through this area. Like she's almost like a guide or a spirit that's pushing her forward. Not in a mystical way, in a way that's very clearly like a memory that Leanna is pushing forward and overlapping into the present. It would make the scene feel less lonely, it would solidify the relationship between Leanna and Chloe, it wouldn't have to be too overblown. Chloe could go in and out of existence as she sees fit. If you did it sparingly, it wouldn't be too annoying. That's just a suggestion I have, is to sort of have Chloe, as an essence, guide Leanna through this. Or just to have a really short, snippy kind of throwaways. Either thing is quite effective, but I think this, right now, doesn't work. That's good, it means you can cut it and make the story stronger, and weave this detail in at a later point. Also brings my attention to effect down to where I wanted it. Yeah, cool. There you go, yep. Because Jilly's doing that for Aiden next chapter. Yeah, actually, good point. You don't want to rinse and repeat too much. Oh, that's interesting. Monkeys on stick. I think it works in short bursts, perhaps. George R. R. Martin stealing your ideas before you even have them. one thing I'll say right now is that here. So off in the distance in the far back corner of the outpost there was a giant tree, its leaves shriveled and brown. This is okay. But from here onwards, what we lack is a motivation. I feel like the urgency or the directive of why Liana is in this outpost is starting to wane, and her grip of what she's doing is blossoming out into more of a third person narration style. So I will make a comment that's a little separated here. This feels I think it'd be stronger to re-solidify the motive of why Liana is here. Sorry, not Leanne, Liana. Yeah, good, got it, Leanna. And have her focus on that. It's not that the details are bad, like I like the Mormon church, the tower with the steeple and the giant tree. I think though that you could push the reader to have a bit of a more urgent sense that, okay, we're here for a bike part, the outpost has gone to shit, over there is a steeple where they could have had like a scout, maybe I should go there. Because maybe I will find something that can help me find the motorcycle parts. Like I think we're after motorcycle parts. That's my impression as a reader of what we're doing here in this story. Liana is at an outpost. It's been recently ravaged by a nebulous kind of threat. I think it's aliens because I know the story, but we haven't got a real sense yet. It could be raiders, it could be insurgents, it could be the rebels. We haven't got that kind of... Oh, except we have plasma rifles, so we know it's sci-fi-y, but humans could have plasma rifles too. So again, Liana's at an outpost, it's been ravaged, humans are dead. Why is she here? Well, she wants motorcycle parts so that she can go and repair her bike, which she has currently, and go off and do Motive A. We still haven't got a glimpse of Motive A. 1.3k words into the story. If you hadn't told me that she's here to fix the bike, I'd be very worried, but I'm starting to get a bit worried about what this whole thing is about. Where's she going? Why is she in this town? Why is she risking her life for motorcycle parts? Is she delivering something to Motive A? Is she going to Motive A for some urgent reason? Is someone dying and she needs to get there within X number of hours? There's a lack of a dark cloud. The sky is too clear right now in terms of the motive, and it makes the story quite soft, I suppose, in that I'm reading through it going, yeah, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. But it might be stronger if we're reading through the story going, okay, Liana's in danger and she's got a very important thing to do, and I'm with her, I'm there, I'm by her side, and I want her to succeed. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a tricky one, Liberta. 114. Also, hi, welcome back to the stream. First one of the new year. But yeah, I feel you there. Like, I think after a while you just have to be a bit resigned to the fact that seeking something that's really novel, really original is going to be very difficult, and I feel like first things first, we should be writing stories for that pure enjoyment that we get out of seeing characters do cool things or going to places we can't. The themes and the essence of a story don't have to be particularly groundbreaking or novel or new, and in fact, often the key to finding that is indirectly. If you have interesting characters, they'll do things in an interesting way that confounds a lot of those expectations. So, even though you've written something and someone's already written the same theme, totally fine. It's all about variations on a theme, though. Like, It's like writing a piece of music and being stuck in C minor, and then going, oh, but Imagine by John Lennon was in C minor, so now I can't write my piece of music because it's in C minor. No, not quite. It just means that you haven't discovered a new key. Spoilers, they're all taken. Wait, no, I don't think Imagine is in C minor. Oh, C major. Okay. Nah, whatevs. Yep, C major. Actually, that's quite an important difference. But yeah, still, like, the metaphor holds, right? Don't worry about thematic overlap. Worry about what makes your book special. Sage wisdom from Stork-looking bird. Ah, thank you. Hmm. I think that's better to hang out with people who are very widely read. This is a bit of weird advice. Um, Less advice, more an observation, but I have lots of friends who are extremely well read, and they can't write. When they try to write, they just don't. They often find themselves stumbling over questions like this. Yeah, okay. Spoilers, read less. That's where is where I'm going with this. um, Oftentimes people who are very widely read have a standard. Like, here is what a book is, and because they're so widely read, it's rich, it's nuanced, it's the themes are everywhere, which is a good thing. But then when they come to write a story, their skills are down here, and they're comparing themselves with someone who's up here, and they just end up being unable to write because of that lack of confidence. In a weird sort of way, to become a better writer, the default advice is to read more, but I actually really disagree with that. I think reading more doesn't make you a better writer, it makes you a better reader. It means that you're more well read and blah 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 blah. All the sorts of good things that come from reading books come from reading books, but reading every book by Nabokov, is that the dude? Who was the author of Lolita? Nabokov, right, yeah. Nailed it! Didn't even have to use Google. Like, if you read Pale Fire and Lolita and you indulge in all the finest literature, you won't suddenly be a great writer. You'll be a good reader. So my advice isn't so much to read less, it's just to write more, and to in a lot of ways ignore that temptation that you have if you're widely read to constantly compare your writing to the writings that you've read from other people. Don't do that. It's not useful as a writer. You've got to get your skills up to a point at which you are comfortable to then compare your story to other stories and go, oh, I like what this author does, I'll incorporate little bits of it, or even subconsciously just to start writing in a style that's similar. Learn how to write good before you read good. My friends don't read. Oh, that's kind of sad. I guess that doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be good writers, though. Yeah, it's not a causation correlation thing. Yeah, more or less, write more. That's my advice to writers. It's not to read more; it's to write more. Hmm. Yeah, right. It twists the perspective. Exactly. It's not a bad thing per se. It's just it can cripple someone's sense of self expression if they're constantly comparing themselves to their well-read library. Right, good scrub. Well said. Let's push on a bit more. I want to do more. Inside, I felt anything but welcome. The first thing to hit me was a taste of stale air. It was dense. more ancient than most other buildings from the days before the storm. The stench of dusty paper and lacquered wood had persisted through the years. Regardless, it was clear that the place had been lived in. Blankets sprawled out across the hardwood floor. Empty boxes everywhere, broken trinkets. There was even a little doll with one eye missing. The long benches you'd expect to see. Those had been pushed to the sides, stacked and nailed to cover the tall windows. Thin shafts of light bled in from cracks between the wood, slicing into the room like golden swords. I let their warmth cut me as I walked through to the back office. One thing I really like about this is that you don't call them pews, because they are pews. Like, this is obviously a church, and she walks in. Pews are a specific word for a religiously designed bench. So define pew. Like, I don't even know why pews are called pews. Pew pew. Congregational choir, church synagogue, sometimes a courtroom. Oh, I didn't know it had a court aspect to it. That's interesting. But Liana doesn't call them pews because she's never had any of these things in her life. She's never been in a society in which the church, synagogue, or courtroom was a functioning part, and everyone referred to them as like places of worship. It's just a building that people used to inhabit, and there are benches everywhere or seats everywhere, and that's a very clever kind of it's a clever way to impart information about how Liana sees the world in the types of words that she chooses to use. So I don't know if Sean did this intentionally, but the fact that Liana calls them long benches is really important in a way that's quite subtle. So yeah, nice going. That's really good. Hey, there you go. It was intentional. Nice. Like, she would know that exactly. The shafts of lighting is a little poetic first, and to go and shut it up some. I think I agree. Yeah. Yay, metaphors. Yeah, exactly. It's a weird kind of. Well, not strictly a metaphor. It's even just the type of noun that you choose to to use to describe something. Herring says, I've met lots of people who struggle to accept that they're not fantastic yet, especially when setting out with their first story. And that's the. Yeah, that's the crux of I think what I was talking about too. It's as a writer, you've got to allow yourself to be a little bit shit when you first start writing. The earlier you start writing, the easier it is because you're a teenager and everything you write is mwah, lovely. It's you're the next literature equivalent of Einstein. And as an adult, it's harder for you to accept that you're going to be doing something that you're not good at. Adults don't do well like that. It's even harder if you've got a smart person who's well read and who's starting writing as an adult and who doesn't allow themselves to write crappily. That's yeah. Because I think the only difference between a beginner writer and an advanced writer is time. It's not how many books that person's read, it's how many books that person has written. It's all a time factor. Translation: no one is at my level. No one's at my level out the gate like I am. That's right. Compare yourselves to me. What did Bender say? Compare your lives to mine and then kill yourselves. Well, don't kill yourself, but like, yeah, don't be like Bender either. You'll get there eventually, and you don't even need to sell your body for a mouthful of cash. You can keep your body. Oh, I miss Futurama. Anyway, yeah. Similarly, I also feel like we're dipping into narrator style narration rather than Liana style narration. the key parts here are like the little lived-in details that Liana should I think draw attention to. There was even a little doll with one eye missing. This is a cool detail. And broken trinkets, blankets squirreled across the hardwood floor. I think you've got a really great base here to work on. And in the same way that before, I was talking about writing over your detail with like a more Liana style of writing. Merciless and cruel, how they were. Everywhere I looked, I saw the carcasses, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So here, this paragraph has great potential to be rewritten from a more Liana, in a more Liana style of narration instead of the third person overarching style. So for instance, you could make Liana push open the door, it falls off its hinges, dust everywhere, it's dark, but the first thing that she sees is this doll. Liana walks in, picks it up, looks around, sees that it's lived in, she feels something, she feels things, and then she goes out. Rather than, here's a description of what's inside, people have lived in it, and I'm going to the back. It needs a bit more sort of, needs more of the immediate, the close-natured, emotional impact. So when Liana busts down the door, dust flies everywhere, one-eyed doll in the aisle, lit by shaft light. She walks over, picks it up, feels the close, smooth shave of having used a fresh razor, much like the fresh razors that you can get from the Dollar Shave Club. And so in that same way that you can get like that really nice close feel after you've been growing for a couple of days, you know, you don't want the grains on your face to be bristly or anything. You want that nice close shave, Dollar Shave Club. You want this paragraph here to be, I suppose, a bit more immediate and impactful, rather than like like the listed. It's not written like a list. It's written with a bit more of a soft narration style, but I think you can keep exactly the same details because the details are great. Even a reference to the storm, totally fine. But Liana should take emotional control of this paragraph, like the emotional control that you can take over your stubble. Yeah, exactly. Like Liana's experiencing, not relying it on in an afterthought kind of sense. This will take you a while to get into the swing of it because I think going from third to first, you're tempted just to put I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing that. But the real strength of going from third to first is that your narration can be imbued with this sense of Liana doing things in a very visceral way. It's the biggest strength and probably the biggest reason why going from third to first is most appropriate here. But it will take a little bit of practice too. Yeah. Rather than pushing closer thoughts and actions as redundant assertions occasionally. Yeah, I tend to do this sometimes too, and it's easier in a third person, but I think you can do it with first person sometimes, but you need to keep that set up short. And don't be afraid to not introduce details later on in a paragraph so much as let Liana uncover them naturally. I was wondering that was going to come up. Yes, that's right. Thank you. I tried to make that as natural and smooth as possible. I was trying very hard not to break face and laugh. And the sentiment is still there too. I think I got in with exactly the same sort of sentiment. Hello, PumpkinPieAddict. Hi. Welcome to the stream. The stream of the new year. The natural and smooth as a freshly shaved face. Exactly. So I think you know what to do here. Like, I've been doing it repetitively throughout the course of this edit. I think it's more important for me not to keep rewriting over it and going, hey, write this like this, write this like that, but rather to give you a sense of where the split is between that distance narration versus presence narration. Let's call it that as a shorthand. The first person distance narration and the first person presence narration. You're going for a presence style. This is one of those times where I think you should push it more into the presence. Play up this detail. Like, you've got the groundwork there, some really interesting things. Places like this had always put me on edge. It was cramped and dark. I could hardly take half a step without tripping over piles of old books. They'd been tossed around, abandoned on the desk and on the floor, and the smell. It was an aged, leathery perfume. I took my nose by the hairs. As I waded through the ancient tomes, my fingers around the walls. I let them guide me past a pair of painted portraits, one a tired bearded man, the other a soldier in bronze armor, standing triumphant before an ocean of swords. To my relief, I quickly found the staircase. Such an odd place devoted to such an odd ideal. The concept of its all-knowing power had always looked out for us because what was special? I didn't buy it. If the storm had taught us anything, it was that we were less than nothing, tiny grains of sand in an unforgiving desert. So this is a much more sort of I forgot what I termed this. I gave it a word like a minute and a half ago, and now I can't remember it. Distance narration, presence narration. I hadn't. Oh, first person presence. Nice. There we go. First person distance. Good, good. Thank you. Saved. Nice. Yeah. This feels like it has more presence, doesn't it? Because even though you declare this, which is fine, it's a bit of a like, whoop, here we go. And in we go. They'd been tossed around, abandoned on the desk and floor, and the smell, it was an aged leathery perfume that took my nose by the hairs. This is what grips your reader and makes them think that Leanna is there and that the reader is there by their side. I don't know how I feel about the pictures on the walls. I think it's a decent lean into this idea that Leanna is reflecting on the idea of God. I think it's decent. I can't really think of a way to make that stronger because I think the structure is quite good. Yeah, I got that impression too. And you didn't even have to say it was a priest's office. Like you say, back office, it's full of Bibles and papers. You've given that impression really well. So I think if you can look at what you've done here, especially with how Leanna's feelings guide the reader forward, applying that into things back up would be really useful. Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. It was a relief to leave that room. We've already got relief here. It was a relief to leave that room behind and make my way up those cold iron stairs, which went on, spiraling upwards through the dark until, at last, the kiss of daylight told me that I had reached the top. With a bird's eye view of the whole outpost and the town beyond, it took me all of 2 seconds for me to spot the falcon's nest. The little bird had been clever. A steel cable was bolted above the window frame, which ran across the alley to the building next door. I could just make out the makeshift bridge from there. Little more than a couple planks of wood. It stretched from that rooftop to a small hide buried amidst the branches of a giant dead tree. it was a relief to leave that room behind. I make my way up those cold iron stairs, comma, which went on and on, spiraling through the dark. It's quite a thick introduction to this paragraph, which is basically, I'm out of the room and I'm going up a staircase. It was a relief to leave that room can be rephrased as something like, staircase. Okay, that was my fault there. On and on, up and up. Full stop, on and on, up and up. Bit of a weird way to start a sentence, but whatevs. Artifact got forsaken room and took to the iron staircase. This implies the same thing as it was a relief to leave the room behind. Now, one of the really cool things you can do with first-person narration is you can show without showing. Bear with me here while I make this up on the fly. It was a relief to leave that room behind and make my way up those cold iron stairs is telling you detail, right? Now, a third-person way of showing the detail would be Liana breathed a sigh, like a deep sigh, and took to the iron staircase. Hey, you're showing detail, well done. But in a first person, you can do it differently because Liana is the narrator. Out of that godforsaken room, I took to the iron staircase. Now, you're telling the reader that the room is godforsaken, but what you're really showing is that Liana was perturbed by that room. Without her saying, that room perturbed me, out of that godforsaken room, I took it to the iron staircase. Or, finally out of that godforsaken room, I took to the iron staircase. You can put a little linker up the start there if you want, or something to make it a bit more sort of definite. The subversive show. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, it is a bit. It's not showing you a detail overtly. It's doing it in a way that's implied. First person narration is great at doing this. Like, the way that a character will tell you something often betrays how they're feeling. And I could write out a demonstration of that, but it's intuitive. Like, it's like if a character is writing a silent plea for help that's implicitly directed to their reader. It's like, I met my mother today, and I didn't feel as crap as I usually did when I came out the other end of one of our encounters. I'm fine, really, I'm fine. It wasn't as bad as it was in the past. That kind of thing that I just said has a lot of implication and show to it, even though it's not the same kind of show that the third person narrator would show. Michael put the pen down and closed his diary. The thoughts inside of them, thoughts on those pages still swirled around his head, and unseated something deeply distressing within him. His encounter with his mother hadn't been as bad as it had been, blah 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 blah. It's a different way to do it. This person, yep. My dancer. Present is oh, person, yeah, sorry. Like, tenses and persons confused. Present can be really well done, but it's if you're writing a story with a lot of motion, it can get a bit, I do this, I do this, I do that now, I'm over here now. It reads a bit like I don't know what it reads like. People tend to shy away from first person present. The exception being the Hunger Games, which is first person present. The Hunger Games. Is the Hunger Games based on a true story? Thank you, Kukul. But limits of first person present. Yeah, so it's first person present. Cool. So nothing happens in my stories. It's easier to spin a story in the first person present than it is to be like, I'm over here and I'm over here. So I wouldn't say nothing happens in the storytelling. That's very disgenerous, which is totally a word. Don't look it up. Yeah, no, lots happens in your stories. It's just the way that the tense constrains the narrative. It's different. I just get the notion that the person is running down a corridor shouting about actions. Yeah, right. I still have that same, hey, I'm over here now, I'm doing this now. I was Googling that back then. Also, Google you dumbass. Sorry, yeah. Not like an imperative to asking me to Google. I'm on your wavelength, don't worry. Giant tree. I did my best to buy back with smirk that I was sporting. You can just put that to buy back my smirk. Such a simple ruse. A nest in a tree, hidden in plain sight, the remnant way. It had been concealed well enough. A basic square hut with a little viewport cut out from the side. This should be an M dash. Near as I could tell, it had mostly been constructed from dead branches, leaves, and some rope. You wouldn't see it unless you knew to look for it. I think that's decent. But the prospect of getting there, that's what ripped the grin from my cheeks. This should definitely be an M dash. I would need to use the zip line across, which meant that I'd be dangling 4 stories above the pavement as I made my way over. I searched around for rope or some wire or anything that I could use to slide across, but there was nothing in hand. For a moment I thought to use my bow, but there was no way in hell that I was going to risk damaging it, and I was especially averse to the idea that it might snap while I was halfway across. Nope. I resigned myself to the notion that I would need to shuffle over 1 inch at a time, reaching up. I wrapped my fingers around the metal, felt the cold vibration of the steel as I swung my legs up and around. The whole thing bucked and weaved, making wobbly, bendy sounds as I shimmered forward. I'd never minded heights, but something about the situation ensured my eyes remained fairly shut. It wasn't until I felt the rough grit of roofing shingles grate against my scalp that I realised I'd made it. This verges into the try and make this more immediate. Yeah. So just going back from what we've been saying before, this feels like it's a bit too distant, like less so than the last paragraphs, but maybe more towards the end when she actually describes her having done something. So I think maybe have another little look at this section. Oh, interesting. This is real literature. It's interesting taking feedback from people too, because like their impression is a valid one. Except they can't rewrite your story so that it appeases them. They have to be agreeable to what the story is trying to do as well. So your Congo story is a bit difficult because it's told in a journal style, isn't it? And a newspaper style, right? I guess I can't really comment without seeing, but if you feel like that's a valid criticism, then it's good to start thinking about how to overcome that. But it may not be because it's written in first person present. If it's a writing style, oh, the point is completely valid. Good. It's good to think about then, and see if you can massage it so that you like the way it ends up working. What's going on here, Sayaka? With your 3 little stars. Oh, that's right. It's the it's the link thing. Whoopsies. I'll have a look at this video after stream. I think, Herring, were you going to intersperse your letter writing with actual articles? Not actual articles, but like articles he's been writing. 15 seconds away. Is this he almost Aussie girl? Okay, I'll watch him. Wow, the I think I'm this Aussie girl. She's articulate. I think she's putting on the Australianisms, but wow, that upset me deeply. Also, the hit or miss girl, wasn't that like really popular at the start of last year, or was that a recent thing? Because it's only just recently come up on my meme radar. But it seems like it was around for a while. I don't know. I mean, the first half of that part is a bit slow. Right, right. Yeah, I agree here. Oh, sorry, no, you're talking about your own story. Sorry. 4 articles that you might find in National Geographic. Are the articles presented like back to front complete, or are they excerpts from articles? Because the excerpt form may be a way to get around that. If you have the criticism of, oh, nothing happens, and break up the article style with excerpts rather than the full excerpt thing. Anyway, I'm sure you'll get a better sense of it as people look through it more and give you feedback on that. I think I'm done for today. I think maybe Sean can have a little think about this first part, which I think is a good 2 grand words that we've gone through. Yeah, good. So I think there's a lot here that like the biggest thing I have to say is about the distance between the narrator and the events, the first person presence versus distance, and keeping up the narration style so that it's a presence story. Because I think that's what we're going for. You're more than welcome to rewrite it as a distance story. It just needs to be clear what we start with, what we end with, and what kind of vibe we're going for. So, yeah. On a line by line basis, I think it's quite good. There's a lot here that has some really neat images, and I feel like it's got a presence. Despite the fact that it's told with a bit of distance, it still feels like it's a place. And I think that'll only become stronger once the narration style matches Leanna's voice, so to speak. Yeah. Oh, we're done. Good. Any thoughts on a chapter? Okay, I don't think it's good. Well, we'll do your story again next Sunday as well. Yeah, we'll go from where we left off, and we'll start then. Cool. So that'll be next Sunday, same time. I'll put my countdown on Twitch back up. Good. Okay, thanks guys for joining me. Thank you. I think it's that it should make some lines more snappy. Yep, the pace in the story is nice. I think so. Yeah. It's the snappiness, but I think it's also the way that Leanna is talking as well. Give her more of a voice and presence in the story. That's the thing to work on, I think. But yeah, happy 2019 for you guys. I hope it's going to be a great year for everyone, and all the best for all of our collective writing adventures. Yeah, I look forward to it. Let's continue the chats in Discord. That'd be nice. Good. As always, thank you for joining me. Thank you to DLACC. Thank you Outrider SG. Thank you Herringbone. Thank you Psycho. Thank you Liberta. Thank you PumpkinPieAddict as well for popping in. Good stuff. We'll catch you guys later, okay? Bye.